gonna.
Hello and welcome, David Kurten.
Hi, Charlotte. It's really good to join your new show.
Yay, thank you for coming on. This is Charlotte's Web. We talk about anything and everything. Hashtag no filter is what the tagline is.
Well, I do have a little bit of a filter because I do have to make sure that I can carry on and I don't go to jail or anything like that. That notwithstanding that, I'll do my best to have no filter.
Yeah, well, you generally do. You are one of the most outspoken, I guess, prominent politicians or free thinkers in the UK, really. And that's one of the main things before we even worked together. So, full disclosure, I was David's producer at a previous station up till last year at TNT. But you first came on my radar in 2020. When the shit show started, for want of a better word.
Yeah, the 2020, the last 5 years, that was when so much happened, wasn't it? Lockdowns and then the start of injections. But I just thought, I've got to speak up about this because this is wrong. You know, I saw from the very beginning. And I just couldn't believe how many people just fell for it or obeyed, even if they didn't believe in it. They just followed the government anyway. They thought they should follow the law. But, you know, when the law is tyrannical, you have a duty to stand up and oppose it and resist it. Otherwise, there's going to be a permanent state of tyranny. And there was a semi-permanent state, wasn't there? It went on for 2 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I was so blessed to be able to go to those big rallies in Trafalgar Square and stand on the stage in the, you know, especially the big one in September, the 19th, 2020. I will never forget that day. When I saw the police marching in and battering people over the head with truncheons just for standing in a public space, all friendly, all peaceful, just advocating for freedom. And then they were getting, you know, battered by the police. And I'd never seen that before. So that was a bit of a shock. But, you know, I think that really woke a lot of people up to want to stand up some more and join in. So, and then, you know, later on in 2021, I remember the big march in March, actually, in 2021, where there were just too many people for the police to arrest and take off the streets. And that was when it really started to break this lockdown and COVID nonsense. But yeah, that's, you know, remembering the days there. I can't believe that's 5 years ago. And now there's just more crazy stuff happening just on a weekly basis.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Horrendous.
Well, thinking back to what you were just saying then, and I have got a clip of you out on the protests from 2021 shortly I'll play, but I'd just like to talk about like the mindset. So those marchers, a lot of people didn't know, the public didn't know how big they were, and they won't have understood how brutal the police were with protesters who were there just because they saw through the bullshit. That's the main reason I was there. Is that why you were there? But with the mentality of so many police, and not just police, the TSG, all the rest of it, who could just turn on the citizens, their fellow citizens, like that.
They were causing the trouble. They were the ones stirring things up. You know, if they weren't there, then there wouldn't have been any trouble, any problems whatsoever. And I did go to one march in Birmingham, and West Midlands Police had a completely different policing strategy. They stood back, they stayed well away from the crowds. They were there in the background, but they didn't intervene. They didn't harass anybody. And it was just lovely, peaceful. There was no trouble whatsoever, which would have been the case in London, except you had the Met Police there who, you know, quite frankly, are full of a lot of psychos. I mean, I think these days they actually deliberately look for people with narcissistic, sociopathic, psychopathic traits and employ them because they're not going to have any qualms about going in and pushing people around and, you know, any scruples or conscience about bashing people over the head, even if they're innocent. So, you know, that's what I saw. And what was especially disturbing as well is that sometimes they would deliberately target women in the crowd in order to wind up the men. So then the men would go and try to defend the women, and then they'd all turn on all the men who were going to defend the women that they'd battered and beaten up. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And I saw that almost every week. As I lived in London at the time, and I actually went to every single protest that was going on in London, the freedom rallies, but also, there were these Black Lives Matter protests in June 2020. After, what's the bloke's name? George Floyd, and
Derek Chauvin and all that kind of thing.
In Minneapolis in the USA, nothing to do with the UK, but there were a lot of Black Lives Matter protests in the middle of the time when everyone was supposed to not meet with each other. But the police were like, they were fine with them. I went to one of those just to watch what happened, and because of the color of my skin, I think they probably thought that I was actually part of the demo. So I went up, I saw these two policemen, and they had like "welcome team" written on their vest or something. And I went up and I took a photo of them standing by a big stereo boom system, and they were like happy to have their photo taken with me. Like they were, they were all being nice and making sure everyone was okay in the middle of the supposed lockdown. And then the next week I was out again with the Freedom Rally, and they were back to being brutal to everybody. So I
bet you were the only one without a mask on, though. The Black Lives Matter protest,
right. I did no masks. Absolutely. I don't think they brought masks in yet then, but I didn't wear a mask, to the rally. So what a ridiculous idea that was.
Last night, I got some little bits of clips for us to play to get today during our conversation, and there were a couple. One's by Oracle Films, actually, and Oracle Films, Phil and. What was the guy's name? Oracle did some brilliant documenting of the freedom rallies, and I was going to play this one because I did get really emotional last night, and I thought to myself, "This, you're in it," and a couple of the speeches that I watched, I thought, what a time to be alive, to be going through this tyranny that they're putting everybody through. So let me just play this for you, David.
Johnson government has started to accelerate, got the vaccine passports through Parliament. They're threatening vaccine mandates. Now yesterday, they're threatening another lockdown, which is completely insane. It will start to ruin businesses again. They're saying that pubs can open, but only outside. I mean, they're just psychologically abusing the whole nation. And we've got to stand up and say no. Even though it is midwinter, we've got thousands of people people here. I don't know how many thousands, but you know, for this time of year, there's a huge number of people who say we're not going to put up with this. We are going to have non-compliance on a massive scale with these repugnant laws and regulations, which they've got no right to make because they undermine our fundamental freedoms, which are ours. No government has the right to take them away.
So how does that make you feel looking back?
Oh my goodness. Wow. That was such a time. I mean, yeah, I was so glad to be there, but you know, it's terrible that we had to do that. But my goodness, I mean, you know, I just, man, I nearly brings a tear to my eye.
Yeah, that's what happens. Yeah.
But, you know, during that time, that was the only time I saw people because we were kind of locked in our houses. People didn't go out so much. As I said there, you know, they had these crazy rules where pubs could open, but you could only sit outside. Cafes could open, but you could only get a takeaway coffee and you had to go outside. And that was, I think, December 2021 that footage was from. So it was, you know, just a year and 3 quarters after the start of the lockdowns. It was nearly at the end, but that was a really key protest because they were trying to bring in a 4th lockdown, and if they had done, then that would have gone on for a much longer time than the first 3 that we had. But I think us going there, and at the same time as all the Partygate revelations coming out, the fact that the people in Downing Street were all having a party and didn't worry about the own rules that they'd set for everybody else meant that there wasn't a 4th lockdown, and you know, we defeated it there. But yeah, it was that kept me going, you know, that psychologically. But you know, that was, there was so much love there from all the people. You know,
importantly, you kept a lot of people going too. And also, this is my 5th episode of Charlotte's Web, and I just thought to myself, I've mentioned COVID to about 3 out of 5 of the guests so far, and gone back to that, and mainly because not only that it's important to not forget about everything that they did to us, but it actually started laying the path to where we are now. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's not a normal time. The last 5 years, that really did change society quite a lot. And, you know, now we're back to normal in some ways, but we're not really back to normal because people are still vastly affected by it. And a lot of people have died. A lot of people have been injured by these injections, and a lot of people's education has been messed up. People have lost their jobs. You know, now people work from home more than go into the office, which has affected, you know, people's psychology, what they're able to deal with. There's a lot of people who have got vaccine injuries, so they can't do what they could do before. So that really has changed so many things, and most of them not for the better.
But also, do you think as well, all of that's true, where we're leading to now with the talk of digital ID, like the vaccine passport threat, and I guess as well the amount of money that was allegedly wasted on the technology for that. Was it wasted, or was it setting the infrastructure for what's to come?
Yeah, I mean, that's it. So much money was wasted. I mean, it went to companies and corporations and people that were, you know, acting parasitically off the taxpayer. But you saw a big infrastructure being rolled out over the time. I mean, all these 5G towers going up. You know, the first one I saw was in 2019, but that was like one of, like, you know, just a few. And over the 2 years of lockdown, they put in, you know, tens or hundreds of thousands of these 5G towers for a new telecommunication system, or the digital ID system, the Internet of Things, or whatever you like to call it. So there's a lot more about that, you know, than we're being officially told. I mean, the idea that those are just for downloading films and streaming films more efficiently that's absolutely ridiculous. That's needed for the digital ID technology coming in, and where everyone will be surveilled and monitored all the time, whatever we do. And so, you know, obviously that's come in. You talk about the vaccine passports that they wanted to introduce in 2021, and now we've got the new digital ID. I mean, Keir Starmer calls it brick card. I think that's a little bit of a straw man, to be honest, but it's coming in, and it'll be a lot more insidious than sort of what he's making out there. So yeah, we're still fighting the same battles, and this is like the 10-year plan for Agenda 2030. It's all in there.
Yeah, well, I was going to bring this up to you. So I guess at that time, 2021, had you already started the Heritage Party?
Yeah, I started the Heritage Party during the first lockdown, actually. I started working on it in April 2020 and then launched publicly in September 2020. But I was sort of doing 6 months of groundwork where there's so much to do to start a political party. I mean, it's not something I ever thought I would do. And then it's like, okay, it's time to do this now and just go for it and see if I can do it. And so we launched in 2020, actually, in the autumn, just after the big rallies in Trafalgar Square. So yeah, that was it. I was Heritage Party from then.
Well, your party is, if people have asked me about you and Heritage Party in the past, and one of the things I do say is how you are the only one brave enough to mention Agenda 2030. All the other parties, even the smaller ones, and Advance UK, for example, they'd like to talk about mass immigration. Some of them are opposed to digital ID, etc., etc. I could go on, but actually, you get to the crux of the matter, and are one of the few voices who are saying stop Agenda 2030. Because if you do a deep dive or whatever, and you're explaining why these things are happening, it's all there, isn't it, David?
It is. I mean, there's the 17 Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations, which are the descriptors of Agenda 2030. And then there's like a 300-point sub-points of those things. But yeah, it's all about that. It's digital ID is one of those things. And it's presented in such a nice way. They talk about gender equality, for example. But that doesn't mean equality between men and women. What that means is they're going to get rid of biological sex and gender altogether. And just say that you're all of indiscriminate gender. So, that's the idea of that one. And then this idea of giving everybody a registration globally. So that's all to do with the digital ID, and everyone will have a unique signifier, a single unique signifier to be on a digital ID wallet, which will be cloned in cyberspace and accessible to all governments and agencies around the world. That's what they want to do. So it's all there if you look at it, and as well as complete control, total control over water, food, energy, air, travel, 15-minite cities, preventing people from traveling unless you're one of the elites who can get on a private jet in Northolt and travel over to these climate summits in Bali or Brazil, wherever they happen every year. So that's the agenda.
It's all very Hunger Games society, isn't it? Have you watched the Hunger Games? I've only watched one of them, I think, but all the elite have this huge HS2-like transport to get them to the main capital city there, and then all the rest of us minions are begging for what they've got.
I know. I read those books actually when they first came out. I think it was 2011, something like that. They came out and I read them. And the films, I love the films. Fantastic adventure films. But it really does describe a dystopian future that some people would want to bring in. And the more life goes on, the more you can see elements of that are becoming true and real in our reality here. When I was growing up, it would have been inconceivable. You see on films, people's free speech being taken away, people being locked up for something which wasn't a crime, and you can think that's never going to happen. That's describing the Soviet Union or communist China or something, but it's happening here.
Well, George Orwell, 1984, and all the rest of it. Like, was he an insider or was he predicting the future? I think
that's
the first one,
isn't it? Because he did know quite a lot of Fabians, but he did, so you could say it's predictive programming. But I think actually it was genuine, and he actually had a vision of what the future could be if we don't avoid it, if we don't take steps to go in a different direction. So
talk about the thought, please, and things like that. I watched a very scary interview a few weeks ago about the technology that actually is around that maybe has not been introduced to institutions or whoever's going to use them nefariously, where they can actually read thoughts. That's to come, I think, but it's about scary.
I have seen some things like that, and I've more and more people are talking about that. You know, what they've actually publicly told us that they have is probably way less at a lower level than what they've actually got. So, yeah, they can obviously now do incredible things with prosthetics and biotechnical, hand things. Your hand gets broken, they can stitch your hand on, and you can move your hand muscles with your brain. But that's what they're experimenting on now, actually reading your thoughts and through your brain waves. And then so that brings into focus, the question, are we going to be like Minority Report in the future, where we have the police reading your brain waves and then a Department of Free Crime that arrests you even if you haven't done anything?
Yeah. Did the creator of Minority Report have a wild imagination, or again, is it something that did they were coming? Crazy. So I've got a few other things to talk to you about. One of them, I'm going to play a video, and I'd like to get your thoughts on it, and then we'll talk about this person and the ilk. You ready?
Okay.
Got a special place in my heart, because on the one hand, they really helped give birth to the Jewish state in World War I. The Balfour Declaration, the San Remo Accords, the mandate for a Jewish Palestine, the UK was at the forefront of that. And then they turned on us.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
They turned on us, man. And therefore they have a special place in hell for turning on the Jewish people. You were like doing this great thing. You were helping Israel be reborn after 2,000 years of exile. And it was, it was a biblical value. It was also a defense for a UK value, but it all turned on us. Can we turn it back?
Can we turn it back? The British government have just turned on Israel. But they've
been turning on us for a long time.
Yeah, but when we say they, it's the British government. So let's separate the people from the establishment. The establishment have turned. It's like when the American establishment were in power under Joe Biden. The American people didn't support that. The British public don't support what the British government have just done. If it was put to a democratic vote on whether the British public wished to recognise the state of Palestine, it would be a resounding no. Yeah, it would be a resounding no. So the people haven't turned on Israel. The people haven't turned on Jews. The left-wing establishment have turned because they're appeasing their bloc vote and they're appeasing their future vote.
So the reason I wanted to show that is because, I mean, not even what was said, but the last 2 months there's been so many influencers that have gone on this propaganda trip in Israel. And it's confusing. I mean, our country's in a state, isn't it? It had a lot of massive turnout to his protest, but I don't think they actually know why they were there, really, a lot of the supporters. So, well, go on, what's your thoughts?
Charlotte, I mean, that was painful to listen to. I mean, I don't like listening to these people because they're just talking an absolute load of rubbish. And Tommy Robinson clearly is trying to mix the patriotic movement with support for Israel, Zionism, whatever the Netanyahu government wants to do, or whatever Israel wants to do. And, I've said from the beginning here, I was one of the first. I mean, it's not to do with me, but after the 7th of October, that there shouldn't be such an horrendous counterattack that didn't just go after Hamas, whatever you think of them, but killed tens of thousands of women and children. Some estimates say hundreds of thousands of women and children, and innocent men as well in Palestine. So I think it was absolutely the right thing to do to recognize Palestine as a nation. It is a nation. 3/4 of the countries in the world now recognize it. And you've got this Tommy Robinson character. It's not even his real name. It's just a character. Tommy Robinson doesn't exist. It's Stephen Yaxley Lennon who plays the part of this chap. And a lot of people follow him and go to his rallies, and they do so for the most genuine reasons, because they love this country, they love England, they love the United Kingdom, and don't like what has happened to this over successive governments, Tory Labour, Tory Lib Dem, Tory Labour again, and the way that they've just destroyed the social fabric of this nation through immigration, through wokery, through economic destruction. People hate what's happened, and I hate what's happened as well. And some of what the Tommy Robinson character says is good, But then he goes and totally mixes it up with support for Israel. And what is he doing? Talking to this chap over there with a little hat on, who's slagging off Britain and saying that there's a special place in hell for Britain. Well, may his curses be on his own head. Britain, bless my nation. I'm not going to accept a curse from that foreigner on my country. And Tommy Robinson should have turned around and said, how dare you speak like that about my country? But he didn't. He just capitulated and said, you know, went along with everything that this guy said, which is absolutely wrong and abhorrent.
Yeah. Well, it's not just that though. The fact that him and his entourage seemed as though they were being forced to make tourist videos about Israel. And I don't know, that silly Leo Kearse guy, you know, the comedian from Jimmy. Did you see that video he made about how every country should be a Zionist country?
I haven't seen that. Honestly, I know they're all saying the same thing. There's so many people have gone over and done the trip, and then they come back and they're talking all the Zionist talking points that they've been given to speak about. And it's all to do with getting people who are on the right wing, if you like, the people who were in the Brexit crowd, people maybe in the freedom movement, people who are in the conservative to one extent or another, whatever you think, to support Israel. Because the idea is, oh, well, Muslims are bad, Muslims are the enemy, so you should support Israel, because otherwise, if you don't, Muslims are going to take over the West. And that's one of the angles that they try to get people to support the state of Israel by. But I've seen, it's not just Tommy Robinson. There's this Liam Tufts guy, Alex Phillips. I don't know if Julia Hartley Brewer's been over there.
Yeah, she was there a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Talking points.
In my opinion, they're doing so much more to stoke racial tensions than need be. I mean, we've got our issues without them doing that. You know, the migrant hotels, all the rest of it, which have a lot of worrying things for Brits to be concerned about. But they're actually fueling it, in my opinion.
Well, logically, if you don't want migrant hotels, you would not want to support Israel committing a genocide in Gaza and creating 2 million refugees, some of whom are going to turn up in England and create more migrant hotels. Yeah. I mean, that's the logical, that's common sense, isn't it? So why they support the Palestinians being removed from their land and coming to Europe, if you're a patriot and you don't want more migration, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I mean, it's just logically incoherent. But yeah, we have the problems obviously with migrant hotels. The nations they're coming from, not mostly Palestine at the moment. There's Afghanistan and Eritrea and
Ethiopia, the children, aren't we? I think.
Yeah, some of them are unaccompanied minors, as they say, but what, a 16, 17-year-old, men, they're nearly men, and they're acting like men in terms of what they do, so and the government is just totally trampling on the concerns of everybody in the country who has a migrant hotel, or now they're moving them into army barracks and so on, like in Crowborough and Inverness, and they're going to make more of them. So they're just moving the problem from one place to another, and then calling anyone who doesn't agree a racist and a bigot and far right. Well, stuff this government, because people are being raped, people are being stabbed, people are being sexually assaulted, and they don't care monkeys about the normal, ordinary working people of this country. They only care about the replacement migration agenda, because that's what it is. It
is, and that's another thing that's on the United Nations website, isn't it? It's a thing. Yeah. And but the thing is as well, this is being done on purpose because of the agenda. But also the slurs and the smears, and I guess also these Pied Pipers that we were just talking about, getting people riled up. But also imagine the migrants themselves, as you see, I've seen pictures of them laughing out of windows of hotels and sticking a finger up, blah, blah, blah. That's this pushback, which is right, in my opinion, in some ways, is just going to rile them up even further. And then all of a sudden, bang!
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is, some people in the countries that they're coming from, like Eritrea not necessarily the United Arab Emirates, but politicians in the UAE have said that you're taking into your countries, whether it's the UK or Germany or France, the worst people from the countries in the Islamic world that they don't even want, that they have problems with. And, these are people that don't integrate or don't get on well in their own countries. They're criminals and, they cause social problems there. And we're bringing the worst and the opposite of brightest, the people with probably not much intelligence, but a lot of strength and a lot of criminality to our countries, and then we're told, oh, if you don't want them, you're racist. Now, I don't think anyone has any problem with a few people coming over to work who contribute to the country and start businesses who've got scarce skills. If that was the case, if immigration was like it was in the 80s and 90s, there wouldn't even be a problem. It wouldn't even be something that anyone is thinking about. But here we are bringing in, what is net migration last year was 481,000, which is the third highest ever. The year before that, it was net 900,000. So the last 3 years, it's been extraordinarily high. And, heaven knows what it's going to be this year, this first year of the Labour government. So it just goes on and on. But, as I say to many people, if they wanted to stop the boats with people coming across the channel, they could do it now. They could do it this evening if they wanted to. All they need to do is stop the border force to get from going out and picking people up and send the Navy out to intercept them. I mean, the Navy intercepted a couple of Russian ships a couple of days ago, when they're actually perfectly entitled to sail through the channel.
It's the gaslighting, though, isn't it? The fact that for years and years, and there's still some certain MPs saying that these people are doctors and engineers. That kind of line, which has become a meme in itself, hasn't it? But they've stopped the boats. There's no intention of it. And once you know what the desired outcome is, you can see that this is all just a smokescreen.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people are making a lot of money out of it because the government's given a contract, contracts to Serco and other companies to deal with, placing migrants in hotels and in the private rental sector, which is then means that there's fewer homes to rent for British people who want to rent in the private sector, so prices go up and so on. So it's skewing the market all over the place. But the people who are in with the government, who have got contracts and subcontracts, are doing very well out of it. But then in a way they're selling their soul, but they don't care. They don't care about this country, and they don't care about the social fabric of the country. They just want to make a quick buck, and there's enough people prepared to make a quick buck to do that. So they're making money, and then the thing perpetuates itself until we get someone in government who stops it, and it could be stopped immediately if they wanted to.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's coming from higher powers, isn't it? Then there's not one person or one party that will do that, because that's not the intention of the agenda. But even Tommy Robinson, back to him, before he did his little propaganda tour in Israel, he was on camera saying that the migration problem comes from left-wing Zionists, I think he said. Did you see that clip?
I didn't see that particular one.
I'll try and insert it.
But I mean, the left-wing Jews, left-wing Zionist organizations, I don't know, but there's cultural Marxists, I would say, the people in the Soros, kind of world. There's a lot of NGOs that are funded by George Soros, who is obviously a left-wing Jew. Who supports the trans agenda, the LGBT agenda, the feminist agenda, the replacement migration agenda, the climate agenda. They all fund that, and they're very open about, these days, there's been the very interesting thing this month and in the previous couple of months is there's been a number of conferences in the USA where some Jewish people have got up and said, we're at the forefront. We've been at the forefront of the civil rights movement, of feminism, of all the left-wing movements for the last 50 years. So there's some people openly admitting this. And we know that there are a lot of NGOs in France and, northern France and facilitating people to come across the channel that have, Soros money. So you know, the money is there from that community.
Yeah, and it's not just I guess Soros, but in terms of the UK, and weekly we're seeing these ridiculous UKIP protest versus stand up to racism. You got your people like your Hope Not Hate. In fact, I'm just trying to find the Hope Not Hate State of Hate 2025 report. Which you feature in nearly every year, don't you?
I've been in there for 3 years now. Yes, I've made it.
What is it that they normally say in the description?
They don't say too much bad about me. In fact, I don't even get a very big spot, but they'd say that the Heritage Party is a conspiracy theorist party. So that's all they say, you know. And they did say that I'm now like dabbling with anti-Semitism. So you know, that's all they can come up with, really. But I don't get a big mention. But they usually you know, try to disparage us as well, and saying, oh well, they only had this much money last year, they only stood this many candidates, you know. I think 41 candidates in the general election. I thought that was fantastic. You know, my candidates were great. The Heritage Party candidates, I say my candidates, I feel like you know, they're all their own people, but you know, I'm proud of them. But you know, they're they did a great job. But you know, it's great to have that many. But Hope Not Hate said, oh, you know, they only stood in 5% of the seats, whatever. So they tried to talk us down, you know, rather than you know, encouraging us and talking us up, which of course they would do. You know? Of course,
yeah. Well, I was speaking to Jada Fanson about this on the last one. They're clearly an arm of the government, in my opinion. And she thought the same. So,
oh, absolutely. I mean, they're obviously an arm's length organisation of the Labour Party, because a lot of their directors are, you know, ex-Labour MPs and Labour peers like Ruth Smeeth and so on. But yeah, I think they're definitely tied into the security services, the intelligence, whatever, MI5, because you know, when there was the furore after the Southport murders, and there was one time where Nick Lowles, who's in charge of Hope Not Hate, said something about an incident in Middlesbrough and nearly instigated a riot with disinformation, but nothing happened to him at all. He wasn't arrested for misinformation, for saying, you know, there was something happened that didn't, and stirring up tension. So I think that he's probably protected by the CHIS Act, the Covert Human Intelligence Sources Act, or something. He's protected. So I think he's you know, almost certainly connected somehow with intelligence or with the state, you know. So you know, that's pretty you know.
And the modus operandi is to protect the narrative, isn't it? Essentially, protect the narrative and incite more tensions.
And also, you know, try to make people, you know, try to smear everyone like myself or anyone who's questioning the narrative by calling us far right, anti-Semitic, conspiracy theorist. I mean, these are lazy smears now. I mean, I think most people I know don't care anymore, but there are still some people who do.
Well, they also lump you in with actual wrong-uns as well.
Yeah,
there are some wrong-uns, in my opinion, on that little web, that whatever the definition of wrong-uns is.
Well, there are some. Yeah, there are some people in there who would deport me because of the color of my skin. You know, you know. So I'm not in the same.
Well, I think Steve Laws will be on the next one, maybe.
I don't know what's happened to him, because you know, he was really nice 3 or 4 years ago. I made a video with him about Suella Braverman. You know, had a couple of exchanges on text there, and all of a sudden he's like, yeah, you shouldn't be allowed to stand as an MP. You know, he hinted, he didn't explicitly say, but he implied that he thought I should be deported because I'm, you know, half English. I said I'm English, and he comes out straight away. He says, no, you're not English. You're half English. You have to accept that, whether you like it or not. I'm like, well, you know, does it really matter? Why is he so, you know, wanting to labour that point? Why is he so, like, you know?
Well, yeah, well, it's part of the, don't have to talk about it too much, but the Homeland Party. And I think I've spoken with Alec Came a few times. I didn't think his opinions were that extreme, but it seemed as though they were decided to take that route, isn't it?
Yeah, but there you go. There are some people around like that, but I mean, I just ignore them now, and I just they exist, they do their thing. I don't think they're going to go anywhere very far because people are like, they can see, yeah, this is really going too far. When he says he'd deport me, and I said, who would you rather was in politics, me or Tony Blair? And
you're almost a white supremacist, Dave. But the thing is, and that's back to the racial tensions thing, the more that's stoked and the more that the government are traitorous towards us, by importing all these illegals, mainly men, it's going to cause actual racism, isn't it? That's the issue.
Yeah, it is, unfortunately.
Mindless racism.
Yeah, right. And there are some people that are going to be saying, well, anyone who's not white is bad, like the sort of feeling that was around maybe in the 70s might come back again. I hope it doesn't, because I think that most of the people, who are patriots don't think like that and actually, discern on terms of your character rather than just your skin color. But there are people now who are coming out and, saying these kind of things. But again, whether that's genuine or whether that's actually a psyop, which is state-backed, to cause tension, I don't know. It could well be. You mentioned these, people going out shouting at stand up to racism and them shouting back. Those things don't achieve anything. They just get people wound up. And then you have a lot of people actually now, proposing that there is going to be a civil war. You hear that all over the place. Civil war is inevitable. It's not inevitable at all. But people are going to be wound up the more that there are more migrants committing more stabbings and sexual assaults. Of course, that's going to wind people up. And when people see the demographics of their community change and when people don't feel safe, and this is exactly what the point is in Crowborough, where you've got a small town of 20,000 people and Shabana Mahmood and Keir Starmer are going to dump 600 military-age men in a camp on the outside of their town, and there's going to be no restrictions on where they can go. They can go into the town, and whether they do anything or not, immediately the women in the town, the girls in the town, are going to change their behavior. Because they won't be, they won't go out and do the same things that they did before, because they might, be the subject of an assault.
Yeah, well, there were even, do you remember the Canary Wharf migrants and that guy who got arrested for just walking into some woman's house? Never mind women going for a walk and things like that. The
police say they can't do anything about it because it's just trespass.
Yeah.
But then when someone goes and trespasses on the migrant hotel, then they come out with like half an army. Well, what do you think do you think the policing state, I guess, is altered rapidly? And these accusations of two-tier policing, but is the definition of policing changed? Because they're not protecting people, are they? Yeah, it's completely changed from what it was 30, 40 years ago. I mean, the people have changed, the demographics have changed. You see, like, when I was on the London Assembly, which is 10 years ago now, it was very interesting because every now and again you would have a ceremony for police of an older generation who were retiring, or firemen of an older generation. They all got to 60, they were retiring, they were getting an award from the mayor, and they would all be white. And they would all be quite traditional and quite conservative. But then you've got people coming in now, and they're actually puffing diversity. They're deliberately trying to make the police force diverse. What does that mean? It means you have more women, more gay people, more trans people, and more black and brown people, and Muslims and Hindus and Sikhs. And they deliberately try to reduce the number of white people in the police force. And if you've got any traditional values, well, you'd be rooted out immediately because they would suspect you of being far right.
Yeah, because they use the word progressive. That's one of those flowery words that means, that's progression. That means we're going forward. But actually, no, it's complete decimation of anything that's traditional.
They're liberal, they're diverse, and they're psychopaths. And it's not good for the ordinary people.
Talking of which, I've got a clip to play of the exact description, and we can just talk about what happens in this clip afterwards. You ready?
What Christians would like to know after this incident.
That sounded like me.
In any specifically what Christians would like to know after this incident, and also in any guidance that might come out, is specifically, are they allowed to speak or read out any part of the Bible in London without fear of being arrested?
Chair, I've got to confess, I've not read the Bible, all the versions, and I'm not sure. But I mean, that's a question really for the lawyer or the police, not for me as the mayor.
Goodness me, I remember that. And I was asking questions after Oluwole Ilasanmi was arrested, wrongfully arrested outside Southgate Station, I think, in London. Wrongfully accused by a Muslim, who said he was committing some kind of hate speech or hate crime. So yeah, I thought I'd ask the mayor, well then, what do you think then? Because he's the police and crime commissioner for London, as the mayor of London. Surely you can, without hesitation, say that anyone is allowed to read out of the Bible because we're a Christian country. And he couldn't even give a straight answer. He starts talking to the chair and then bubbling.
That's him all over, isn't it?
Yeah, he's done that. He did that a number of times when I asked him questions. It's very frustrating because when I was there, you get 6 minutes a month to ask a question. It is mayor's question time once a month. The time is equal, so I only get 6 minutes to ask him a question and then ask follow-up questions, and so you don't really get that long, and then he doesn't give a straight answer to something. Well, obviously that means he's not going to commit to say that it's fine to read out of the Bible. And then that means he's created a precedent then where you don't know what you can say. You don't know what you're free to say because you don't know the rules, and the rules change all the time because one minute one thing is fine and the next minute it's not, and then something else becomes okay again, and then they change what's right, the right way of referring to black people or BAME or coloured, or that's changed many times.
You're not allowed to say the BAME anymore.
And I had a bit of fun with that because when I was there, it was BAME, which I absolutely hated. I mean, they described me as that, and I said to them, I don't like being called that. I find that offensive. Like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I've offended a brown person. They were like quickly scampering around trying to figure out how not to offend me, which I love that. I was just having a bit of fun. But there you go.
That was 2019, and he's still there. He's still mayor. Is that? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
It's his third term, and it's extraordinary. But there you go. The people of London voted for him again. He only just got in, last time. But they changed the voting system. They're changing it back for the next one, so he's likely to get in again next time. We'll see, unless Labour as a whole entity just collapses. So it may be the next time, with the complete collapse of the Labour Party everywhere, then he will be out. So I think, but that is on the cards. So he's not going to have an easy time of it next. In the next election, as he did the last three. So yeah, but even so, he would have done 12 years. I mean, as the mayor
12
of London,
years too many.
Absolutely dreadful. I loved London. When I first moved to London after university, it was in the early 90s. It was great. I loved it. It was a fun place to be. But now it's just it's got a completely different atmosphere. It's not a pleasant place to go out, not a pleasant place to be. So I only go in to London rarely, and I just go in, do what I need to do, and get out again. It's not somewhere.
I was mugged in London a few years ago. Yeah, that was a pleasant experience. Got pushed to the floor and someone sped off. But I found out that it's happened all the time around there. A little bit off-putting. What do you think Sadiq Khan's biggest achievement is?
Goodness me, I'm really. It's hard to say. His fireworks, as they're called. You know, if you like woke fireworks, then that's the place to be, because he's made his New Year's Eve firework displays all about gay, trans, Black Lives Matter, Ukraine, whatever. So you know, you think, can you actually mess up a fireworks display? Yes, you can, if you're to be gone. So I don't know. Apart from that, I don't think there's anything that I would say.
Maybe 12 years. That's an achievement.
I mean, you know, Ken Livingstone, at least he did, you know, he was very, very far left, but he did do a couple of good things. He made the museums in London free for everyone. Which was great, because now you can go to the British Museum, the National, you know, Gallery, and the Victoria and Albert Museum. You can go in for free, though. You know, so that was Ken Livingstone's doing, and he actually did a fairly, you know, another few good things for London as well. Boris has been dreadful. You know, he didn't do anything that was, you know, of any, you know, lasting value, and Sadiq Khan has been even worse, you know. So he's done a lot of things that have been detrimental to London.
It's just so smug as well, which doesn't help. Really smug. I've got one more clip, actually.
Okay.
Obviously been found in many other cities and towns around the country, but there hasn't been much of a, you know, many prosecutions happened in London. But, you know, obviously, as the police commissioner for Northumberland said, this is happening anywhere, and the only reason why it's not being found is that people aren't looking. Are you looking in London for grooming gangs in London in order to prosecute people? Because if it's going on in cities like Oxford and Bristol and Peterborough and Aylesbury, smaller places, it's surely going on in London as well on a large scale.
Can I just be clear, Chair? Is the inference that because of my faith or my ethnic origin, I'm not seeking to follow these crimes?
No, I'm asking you because you're the Police and Crime Commissioner.
Assembly Member Kurten, I think you're pretty much drifting now onto drifting off the subject itself. So can I just ask you to stick to the topic and ask a relevant question, please?
Well, Chair, I mean, I was originally asking about Black Lives Matter, and then the Mayor started talking about slavery, and the questioning has developed.
Yeah, but you're still going off the tangent now, so can you please be cautious about that and not ask...
Okay. Well, Chair, if you want to disallow my question, that's your prerogative.
Well, I will use that then. Thank you very much. I'm going to move on now to the questions to the Mayor on...
That was extraordinary again, wasn't it? Like, no direct answer. You know, he didn't even want to address the question. Just defended himself by trying to make out that I was racist and Islamophobic, essentially.
Yeah, and he's still doing the same all of these years later with Susan Hall, who was on that call. Yes, I think that needs to do the rounds again, does that clip, because he just wants to be able to go, you're being racist. And that's just him all over, isn't it?
That's it. Not addressing the fact that there are lots of girls being sexually assaulted and raped and groomed and, you know, treated absolutely brutally in London. And he always says, "Oh, I'm against violence against women and girls. We need to stop it. We got a violence against women and girls strategy and so on, and an advisor." And then when he can do something about it, he's like, "Well, are you racist or what?" Wasn't that like? Are you asking me because of my faith? Are you asking me because of my ethnicity? I said, no, just answer the question, for goodness sake. You know, what are you going to do to protect women and girls? You've said enough about it. And then the chairman stopped me and wouldn't let me ask any more questions. So he was obviously, you know, helping his mate out there in the Labour Party.
How did you used to feel after getting responses like that?
I didn't mind, because the thing is, what I realize is they think they're all very clever because they think that they've won, but they look really, really bad. So it just shows them up. So the thing is, what I was doing there was actually allowing them, you know, enough rope to hang themselves on. And they did, because they thought, you know, they thought that they were stopping me, but they actually made themselves look bad. and obviously then arouse more people's suspicions that something was going on, and then that raises the number of people who are going to ask questions about it. So, you know, that's all I could do with my 6 minutes a month, to ask the mayor, and I did it, you know, on those 2 clips you showed, and on a number of other things as well. So
that was over 10 years ago, was it?
So I was on the London Assembly from 2016 to 2021. So I had 5 years on the Assembly.
I see.
Yeah, so it's 4.5 years from when I'm making this, from when I was on the Assembly. Gosh, time flies.
Well, the thing is, while he's skirting around questions like that, which he needs to answer and he never does, is secretly like working for Michael Bloomberg in New York, and is you know, pushing these top-down agendas. Yet people think they're voting for him and he's got some great ideas, when actually no, he's just doing the bidding of his masters.
Yeah, indeed. And he's part of these global mayors networks, the C40 cities and the Global Compact of Mayors. And they actually, this is very dangerous, because they want to circumvent national democracy by having another forum, which is going to be like another sort of parliament that's set up without many people realizing that it's going to make decisions and circumvent Parliament in Westminster. So you've got in the UK the Council of the Counties and Regions, and you've got all these directly elected mayors now, and also the First Minister of Scotland, First Minister of Wales, all meet together and they work out how they're going to implement the climate agenda, net zero, all the goals of Agenda 2030 in their little fiefdoms, if you like. So I think we should get rid of all directly elected mayors and just have people who are in the parliament or on the local councils making the decision, because at least then there's more democratic accountability. And yes, he is elected, but when you give one person so much power in the whole of Greater London, over 10 million people, and you've got these other mayors coming up now that they want to make the mayor of Sussex. Last year, you know, you've got the mayor of the West Midlands, the mayor of Greater Manchester, the mayor of the north of England, the mayor of the west of England, etc. They want to divide England up into 40 little mayoralties with 40 people who are going to have a huge amount of power that will not. You can't, as an individual, say to the mayor of London, oh, I don't agree with what you're doing in my roads, can you stop it? He's not going to take any notice of that. No. It's going to follow the globalist agenda, and the individual citizen is going to have no rights.
Yeah. Well, that's the way it's headed. And I mean, and on top of all that, isn't Sadiq Khan, well, what he was at least, like high up in the nefarious Fabian Society, which also are basically a communist organisation, aren't they?
Yeah, communist, socialist. I mean, you know, back in the day, there was no difference between communism and socialism, you know, before. I suppose the difference would be now, you might say it's in terms of degrees and how quickly they enact something. So communism, Bolshevism was quick and violent and killed a lot of people, whereas socialism was slow and gradual, but the end result is the same. And you can see now with the Starmer regime, they're actually ramping up and accelerating two-tier justice, hate crime, hate speech, you know, eroding people's rights, surveillance, monitoring, putting people in prison on an arbitrary basis, you know, changing how the law is applied. I mean, after Southport, Keir Starmer deliberately interfered with due process to say that people who would normally be released for a tweet should be held on remand and threatened with being held on remand for a number of years so that they plead guilty. You know, this is the kind of thing that happened in communist countries. So we're now pretty much a communist country, and they boast, the Labour Party, that they have over 140 Fabians, as you said. So they're gone little steps at a time over 140 years. But now here we are, you know, in a place where no one could have even imagined we would be when they began. And so, their goals have come to pass in many respects.
Well, even like some of the policies that have been brought forward, like Kim Ledbetter, who I think is an alleged Fabian, but well, George Bernard Shaw, who was one of the founders of the Fabian Society, was talking about assisted dying and things like that way back then. There's a video of him. And so all these things being implemented under these bastards is quite frightening, really. And I guess I've got a few more minutes. Is that right? It's nearly an hour.
Yeah.
Well, I know I can go forever. And what do you see reform's role in all of this at the moment?
You know, I think there's some good people in reform in the branches and the grassroots, but I don't trust them. I don't see that they have any principles whatsoever. You know, they made a manifesto for the election. They scrapped it soon after. It was all pie in the sky. They say one thing about immigration, then they say another thing about it, and then a different thing. They say one thing about welfare, and then they change their mind. I don't think they've got any principles at all. They are true populists. They just see what they think people want and then say, go with the flow to try to get votes. And then if the population changes, if they perceive that public opinion changes, then they say something different again. So a lot of people ask me, why don't you work with reform? Well, the thing is, they're not interested in working with me. They're not interested in working with anybody else. Their idea is, we're the only game in town. I mean, that's the phrase that a lot of them use. So there's no even a possibility of doing anything with them, and they don't want me anyway. I'm probably far too honest and radical and maybe principled for them.
Do you think reform are the definition of controlled opposition?
Yeah, I think they're the pressure valve. I think they're a Tory pressure valve. And who knows what will happen this time, because I think it's a bit different this time, because people have just done with the Tories forever, or maybe they'll come back in 20 years, but for a very long time, they're done with them. And the next election, they'll be done with Labour, and people will vote Labour out, and then maybe they will vote Reform in, but they're not going to do much, that's of any value. I mean, you see what's happening in the councils that they've got control of. They've got control of 10 councils in England now, and they're messing up all over the place, really, and they're not doing what they said they were going to do. So they are controlled opposition. They are a pressure valve for the Uniparty, but they're going to push. They are very much, in terms of foreign policy, they're pushing the agenda. They're all for sustaining the Ukraine war. They're all for Israel no matter what, you know. And then you might get a few good things out of them, like they're against net zero, so that's good. They say they might do something about immigration. They wouldn't do everything that's necessary, but they might control it to some extent. They say they're against wokery, but all that means is they're against the gender ideology. They wouldn't do anything about marriage, supporting marriage. They wouldn't be pro-life. Two of them voted for euthanasia. So they're divided.
And also the ones who are, anti-woke, etc., they're actually playing into the cultural theatre, if you will, which kind of disguises everything that's actually going on in the background. You say they talk about net zero, but again, they don't get to the nitty-gritty of where these agendas are coming from and why. So that's what annoys me. David, we've got 3 questions from some viewers that put out on Twitter. Are you ready? So the first one comes from Gunky Fadgets, which is Funky Gadgets. Does Mr. Kurten feel the UK economy is entirely dependent on the City of London for survival? And if he does, how can we extricate ourselves from this situation?
No, I don't think it's totally dependent on the City of London. I mean, obviously, the city is a very big part of the UK economy and the financial services, because it services the whole world. And perhaps it's not the best thing for the country as a whole to have that as a high percentage of our gross national income. But we do have a lot of other things. But, the thing with the Labour Party is what we do have is now being destroyed. I mean, we have great agriculture. We've got the potential for great fishing. We used to have a wonderful manufacturing industry. We got oil, coal and gas. But this is being destroyed by going towards the whole net zero agenda, which is being driven by the World Economic Forum and all of this kind of globalists who want a new financial system, a new world order. So the more we go on, the more the City of London becomes important for revenue. But even that is being attacked in a way by all of the attacks on individual people, getting rid of the non-dom status, so wealthy people are like relocating abroad. So I think that it's an important part of the economy. It's not the whole economy by any means, but everything is being undermined by Labour at the moment, and we need to just turn the ship around and build everything up again.
Nice one. I think you definitely answered his question. Got another one here from Richard Rob Rame 1. He says, is the king a treacherous World Economic Forum puppet? He's spoken of the pain we will endure in the transformation to the New World Order. Do you think he means a caliphate?
Yeah, he's obviously allegiant to the World Economic Forum because he goes to all of their summits and he was at he sends representatives, doesn't he? William went to the COP30 summit recently. So yeah, he should not be political. And he's clearly on board with Agenda 2030, the 17 sustainable development things he wears on the lapel there. There's been various sort of clips of him where he's got the 17 colors around him and so on. So clearly he's indicating that's where his allegiances lie. Some people suggest that he's converted to Islam. I don't know.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Don't know what is in his mind. I don't know what's in his mind. But certainly he's very, very favorable to Islam. He's certainly very friendly to the idea of Islamic teachings and so on, where he shouldn't. Well, he should be the head of the Church of England that represents the Christian faith alone. So he's really not fulfilling his oath as he should. So that's a problem. That is a constitutional problem, certainly. So I would to a large extent agree with that question.
We have mentioned a few times, you have as well, New World Order. And I mean, I've been talking about it for years and years. And what does that look like in your opinion? Is it Agenda 2030? Is that what the New World Order is?
Yeah, I think that's it. That's the game plan for the New World Order, where there will be all of our human rights will be gone. We'll be living in 15-minute cities. We'll be living in smart blocks, which is why you see all of these horrible buildings going up all around towns, which look like absolutely hideous places to live. You'll just be, they look like mini prisons, where we'll have a digital ID. We'll have maybe a small amount of universal basic income. And, there will be a culture of death. There'll be abortion when you're young. There'll be vaccines when you're an adult. And then at the end of your life, there'll be euthanasia. So I think they want to reduce the population down by any means possible as well. So the New World Order means that there will be far, far fewer people around, and we'll all be completely restricted slaves. And, apart from the elite, who will have all the resources and the oil, and they'll swan around in luxury if you make it into the top 1%.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I said earlier that what a time to be alive when this is all rolling out in front of our eyes. And the fact that you'd even mentioned the words New World Order, you'd be deemed as a conspiracy theorist, right? Batshit crazy tinfoil hat. But I might try and find the videos and insert them. There's George H.W. Bush, even way back when, used to speak about it. Two or three different speeches. I've got a compilation of somewhere. And
the crisis in the Persian Gulf, as grave as it is, also offers a rare opportunity to move toward an historic period of cooperation. Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order, can emerge, a new era. We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders. What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind, peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law.
And he mentions the United Nations New World Order. So, you know, it's been a process for them, maybe that's gone back thousands of years or whatnot, to get to where we almost are now.
Yeah, as has Biden and Obama and Clinton and Bush the younger, they've all mentioned
David Cameron. He said it, I think. Yeah.
They're all you know, they all occupy these societies behind the scenes and meet behind the scenes in these gatherings. So they've all are giving away that they've all got an assumption that something is coming, or that they're building towards something, or trying to create something different, which would mean the complete destruction of everything we've got. You know, it goes back to the Communist Manifesto, perhaps in some ways, that Marx advocated, you know, the abolition of the family, the nation state, and private property, and also Christianity. So those four things have got to go. And when they're gone, then they'll have the New World Order, which will be, you know, the sort of proletariat, whatever, everything will be collectivized. The top 1% will own everything. You know, it will ostensibly be everybody's, but if you're the 99%, won't have access to it all, and you'll be living in poverty and
social surveillance as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Prison planet. Yeah. All right.
So we have to defend those things. We have to defend the nation, private property, Christianity, and family. We need to defend those things.
And that's what the Heritage Party stands for, isn't it?
Indeed, yes.
Yeah. Our last question is in relation to the Heritage Party.
Okay.
From Graham Kemp, Accounting ETC, could you please ask David if he would persuade you, points at me, to stand for Heritage Party at the next election?
Oh, Graham. I like Graham. Graham stood for us last time, which is marvelous. Charlotte, you can stand for us as well. I'd be very happy if you wanted to, but, you know, we'll see.
I'm a bit of a loose cannon, aren't I, David?
Well, so am I. So I think you wouldn't say anything worse than I would. So, you know, I'd love to see you in the Parliament. That would be great.
Oh my God, I don't think so.
Imagine that. You'd be better than everybody who's there. I mean, look at all the people that are there now. They're a bunch of muppets. So, you know, that's being nice.
Yeah, you have to have a malleable brain, though, don't you? This call it smooth brain. I don't think I can compete with Rachel Reeves for that title.
Oh goodness me! Yeah, I think you do better than her.
So, well, talking of which, it's the budget this week. So, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, they've been putting out loads of announcements of all the terrible things that they're going to do or might happen. It's going to be bad. I don't think it's going to be as bad as they make out, because they've actually, what they will try to do is get you really afraid. It's going to be absolutely terrible. Everything is, you know, there's going to be tax raises here and here and here and everywhere, and it'll be bad, but it won't be as bad as they made out. So then people will go, oh, well, thank goodness they've only beaten me twice rather than 10 times. You know, it's going to be a bit like that, but it's not good. It's not going to be good. You know, she talks about a 22 billion pound black hole or a 50 billion pound black hole, whatever. I mean, I've said many times, that's nonsense. The black hole is 3 trillion now, you know, 3,000 billion, and it's increasing by 180 billion every year. That's the black hole. It's way, way more than they're making out, and it's never, ever going to be filled in. You know, the only thing that we might be able to do is stop it from getting any larger. But that would mean a cut of a lot of wasteful expenditure. As I've said, stop giving money to Ukraine. Stop giving money to net zero, to diversity offices,
migrant hotels,
turbines. Yeah, all these things.
Yeah, they never mentioned that, do they? Right, David, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Are you going to come back?
Yeah, definitely. I'll come back again. Yeah.
Yay. I really, really enjoyed it. So I will finish with a very special video of you from way back then doing a speech at one of the freedom rallies.
Oh, great.
So, yeah, thank you for joining me. One last plug for the Heritage Party.
Yeah, please come and join me. The best thing you can do, you know, if you want to support me and the Heritage Party and what we do is trying to restore our nation, please join. That's the very best thing you can do to help is, and you can join on heritageparty.org. It's £25 for annual membership. If you do that, it helps me. It helps our candidates to stand. It helps us give out publicity and keep going and try to fight the insanity of the Uniparty and the globalists. So heritageparty.org, please join. Thanks.
Thanks, David.
I'm going to introduce a gentleman who should be London Mayor. Who thinks that David Kurten should be London Mayor? Who would like to see Sadiq Khan go? And David Kurten come in. Ladies and gentlemen, David Kurten.
Wow, what a wonderful, wonderful speech to open by Kate. Thank you so much. I wish I were London Mayor because we'd sort out London. But hey, you're all here today, so it's so wonderful to see you and your beautiful faces and not a mask in sight. I'll tell you, I had a very, very strange train journey here because I only came in from the outskirts of London. But even though people don't have to wear a mask anymore and they're not going to get stopped and fined by the police, 3/4 of people were still covering their faces with face nappies. I don't understand it. But I do feel for the people because they've been subjected to 16 months of very, very powerful psychological abuse from the government and the people who sit behind the government in this SAGE group, and they are wicked. But we're here and we've seen the truth and we've seen the light. And what you are doing is you are a physical demonstration of freedom. And no one can ignore you. And no one can ignore the other people in all the other marches and protests and rallies going on around the country today and around the world today. I think there's 200 rallies in France. Vive la France!